All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you for joining in another Wednesday for Learning Revolution for my Thrive in EDU. Every week I have different guests to talk about different things related to education, and so I'm always looking for new ideas. So if anybody is thinking about a topic, curious about a topic, anything like that you want to share, have an idea for a guest to join in, by all means, please send me a message. And I will drop the link into the chat for anybody who is interested in joining the Thrive in EDU group in the Learning Revolution on the Revolution site. So today I'm very excited for the guest that I have joining us, who has, I've been reading Grace's background and experience and what we're going to talk about today. So I cannot wait to dive into our conversation. But while we are doing that, please let us know where you're joining from, what your role is, if you have any questions for Grace, and I will monitor that. And again, for anybody who's watching this after as the recording, reach out if you do have follow-up questions for us, and I will make sure that we send resources or any other information. So today, my guest is Grace Sue, who is the IBM Vice President of Education, Vice President of Education for IBM, I should say, if I said that correctly. I'm just excited to talk to you today. And we're going to talk about a topic that I'm very interested in, and I know that our guests will be. So if you could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in education and what you do?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. It's very exciting. It's my first Facebook live stream. It's an opportunity. I also did talk about something that I love. So I am a VP for education with corporate social responsibility, which is our philanthropic community arm here at IBM. I've been at IBM, I can hardly believe it because it feels like yesterday, but I'm in my 25th year now. Always working in corporate social responsibility, always working on education issues. Before I came to IBM, I worked on children's issues. I worked in the juvenile justice system. Really focused on how to provide students who are pre-adjudication, giving them education opportunities, whether they were in detention for 3 hours or suddenly as long as 3 years. Really good to see the power of education and helping to change a child's trajectory. I've also worked at the Children's Defense Fund, which is a nonprofit advocacy organization located in DC, focusing on issues related to poor children and families. And then, at IBM, I've had, even just looking at one organization, because of the rapid technology and how much technology plays a role in the work that we do, I feel like I've had many different jobs here, even though I sat pretty much in the same seat the entire time. We work in the both formal and informal education space. We work in K-12, early college, and also adult upskilling and reskilling. Really focused on the school to career pathway, and with a very deep focus on education equity, workforce inclusion for all learners. So it's be able to look at IBM and have that platform from which to make change. So a little about me.
I'm muting a little bit there because some of the audio got a little bit choppy. So I was just checking to see if it was on my end. Sometimes it kind of kicks out, I've noticed.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes somebody will say, well, you froze. And I always say, but I thought it was you that froze, but it was actually me. So I'm just double checking that. So with your background, you have an amazing background, and I did share that with anybody who gets the notification that comes through from Learning Revolution, so that they had kind of an idea of, the perspective that you're speaking from, the experience that you're bringing with you today to talk with us about STEM and STEM education, specifically, like in different phases, right? Before, during, and as we're moving through, and hopefully at some point when we can say, okay, we're after this COVID-19 experience, after this year, and things hopefully tend to become a little bit more normal. But one thing that has been on my mind is, throughout all of this, at least as a teacher in my experience, I've been trying to think of the positives. Like, yeah, nobody is really thrilled. Like for some of us, we can't be in our physical classrooms and everything is online. But I've tried to focus on the fact that telling my students last year, some of which were juniors and seniors, like this is an opportunity for you to learn about technology and to interact in this space, whether you go to college and you have courses online, or you go into and you have some type of a job that's requiring you to work completely remotely because they don't actually have an office anymore, which for some people they think, what do you mean they don't have an office? And I say, well, there's this thing we talk about, like the gig economy, and some offices don't actually have physical spaces because all of the employees are working from wherever they are. So preparing them not just for now, but for the future. It just so happens that we have this opportunity now. And so I'm curious to know, just from your background and then the work that you do with IBM, what is like their perspective on the future of work and on education, or like what are you seeing happening as a result of everything that we've been going through with the COVID experience?
Yeah. Well, I do think that we're never going to return to the old ways of doing things, and we are going to be in a new normal. From our perspective, as we think about the future of education, the future of the workforce, we really do want to focus on equity and inclusion, especially as a company that's bringing advanced technologies to the marketplace. And we realize that technology, while incredibly powerful, changing everything, at the same time can exacerbate inequities in the haves and have-nots. So we feel that we have to take deliberate actions in order to be able to ensure that all young people and adults as well, as you talked about, it is lifelong learning, have skills they need to be able to participate. And so we need to equip people now. And I guess that is the upside of what remote learning or hybrid learning for students now across our nation are having to deal with is what does it mean to work in the online environment, and how do you navigate that? I think there are absolutely some pluses of being able to combine in-person and online. In-person is essential, especially for all students. We believe wholeheartedly in the primacy of the teacher and how important it is. The teachers are there just as coaches and sages. They really are there to support young people and really give them the confidence and the inspiration and the motivation to achieve and replicate in the online environment. And certainly there's groups of students with disabilities who are, not going to be able to thrive as well in online environments. So those are all considerations. But at the same time, being able to learn how to operate in an online environment is a plus for young people, because you're right, that's exactly how we work. I'm not in the office now. I'm actually talking to you from my kitchen. And again, that I work with every week, who I've never met in person because they're in India or they're in Australia or China. So, it really is about finding ways to collaborate and innovate or online. I think the other great thing about online too is that it does and can level the playing field, because content become more powerful. You can provide the most up-to-date, cutting-edge kind of technology just through the web. The challenge is, certainly for my son, I don't have to worry about, okay, does he have a computer to work from? Does he have Wi-Fi connection? That's not true for so many young people in urban, rural, and even suburban areas throughout our country, where access to hardware, access to connectivity is a real obstacle to meaningful learning. So I think at the baseline, you have to focus on some of these equity issues, make sure that everybody has equitable access to the basic practicalities of online learning, that our teachers have opportunities to learn and grow in the online space. And I think this is just a tremendous time for us to learn. How do you do this hybrid kind of learning or remote learning really well in the K-12 space? I think there's so many best practices that we're going to learn in the next month, so it's important for us to capture those and share them.
Yeah, and one thing that that you said, I mean, you said a lot of things in there that were kind of resonating with me, but the one thing that I always come back to is just, I'm so thankful to have the technology because we can have those different connections and the different spaces. And I've had conversations with educators in India, New Zealand, and of course you're working with all the time differences. And I always laugh because I'll say, I don't even understand how we are able to have those conversations through the computer with the technology that we have, but yet I can walk from my office to my kitchen and be talking on the phone to somebody that lives in the same town as me, and I lose service. And it's just, how does that happen? But preparing our students with the skills that they need for the future. And I started to say, like, for a long time, I was saying, oh, we got to prepare them for the future. And these are the skills that they need for the future. But then I found myself backing off of that and saying, these are the skills they need now and in the future instead. And that was so different. And that is something that came up in, I mean, the last couple of months of school last year when schools closed. And of course, even in the last couple of years, because I've been looking more into future of work and what I can do as a teacher to prepare my students. As a Spanish teacher and a STEAM teacher, for a long time, I was thinking that, oh, I can't do anything with STEM or with STEAM because I'm teaching Spanish and that's all I need to do. But then I realized that, in all honesty, not all of my students are going to go on to become Spanish teachers or Spanish majors. So I need to help them to develop other skills for later on in life. And I joke with them and say, well, you never know, because when I was in high school, I took French and I had no idea I'd be a teacher. So you have to keep your options open and looking at the future of careers and what the careers are that are out there that are there now that might be out there in 10 years that we don't know about yet. So the best that we can do is kind of have conversations, use surveys, and analyze what the trends are. And I know that in some of the work that you've done, especially I heard that there was a survey that was conducted that talked about the future of jobs. And I wondered if you could share a little bit about, what did that survey show? What are some of the predictions for careers in the future? What did it measure? What were the findings? I mean, anything that you could share with us about that survey itself.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research on what does the future of work look like. We did an Institute for Business Value study, IBM's Institute for Business Value, and in that study, we found that 120 million people in 12 hours would need some sort of retraining in order to be able to be in jobs that carry weight. We also IBM that 100% of jobs will change as a result of AI and other emerging technologies. So some jobs will go away, but it's really about how existing jobs change. So what does it mean to be a nurse in the next years? And really about tasks changing. So some tasks will automate, but all jobs will require a higher order of skills. And we don't really even know. I mean, I think you're so right. We have to prepare today and tomorrow, and we don't really even know what those jobs are going to completely look like. So students really need to have academic technical acumen, absolutely, but they also have to have a set of professional skills that are going to enable them to be able to navigate this very quickly changing world because technology is growing so rapidly. So they need to be agile, they need to be critical thinkers, they need to be problem solvers, and that's what business leaders say they need. So if you look at the shifts in the way business leaders are thinking about it, they are looking for people who have those evergreen kinds of skills. They're going to enable them to be able to shift from job to job to job. Now, that doesn't mean that kids should know math or language. Those are, math communication skills are really critical to jobs, jobs. So we've got to really make sure that our students have a comprehensive foundation that extends from technical to professional. And we have to be really inclusive about that, because if we have people creating AI solutions, we want to make sure that those solutions are about. So it's really important that girls are involved in AI careers, and then we have people of color involved in AI careers, so that we have solutions that are available for everybody. So that's critical as well. The survey that we did was actually something that we did with Morning Consult. It was a survey of, I can't believe we're on this generation, Gen Z. We did a survey of 14 to 18-year-olds. There were about 3,500 plus students across the world who were involved in that survey. And what that survey found was that our kids know that AI is here, and very important. Like, they're really interested in these kinds of careers with emerging technologies. 70% of young people in that survey said they're really interested in these areas, but only about half of those felt like they were getting the preparation they needed in order to be able to understand how you really go after those careers. So there's more that we need to do in that area to really build up our next generation of leaders and workers in this new world that we're facing.
Okay, I'm going to pause there 1 second and check some questions. Okay, so questions, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them into the chat, because we would love to hear your questions. And I do find it fascinating, just some of the research that I've done and reading things and like writing blogs for Getting Smart, looking at statistics, the World Economic Forum with different predictions, and even just thinking back 5 or 10 years, what like the jobs that exist now that 5 or 10 years ago we'd never heard of. And like, I think, who would have thought that? And then of course now looking forward to the future, people are saying like for 2030, how do we prepare the students? What skills do they need? And of course the things like you're mentioning, like the critical thinking and the problem solving, and there are a lot of other skills. And for me as a teacher, what I'm noticing is as I'm trying to help students build social emotional learning skills, a lot of that is tying into, future ready skills, and there is an overlap with those skills as well. And so talking about this survey with you, with the findings and everything that came to be after you did that survey, what is IBM doing to kind of help address what the survey results were? How are they helping to prepare like this next generation we have of the tech leaders that we're going to need to kind of continue everything that we have and build beyond that for the future?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for asking that, because we're doing a number of exciting things. One of our signature programs that's really getting a lot of traction is called PTech. PTech comes in two forms. It's a brick and mortar school, and we've now taken that model and expanded it across the United States. It's looking at high school levels 4 years, so that when students graduate, they're earning both their high school diploma as well as their 2-year associate's degree. And it's not just any associate's degree, it's aligned with industry. Every PTech school is a partnership between a high school, a college, and an industry partner. And students, in addition to taking high school and college coursework simultaneously, they also are engaged in a range of workplace experiences like mentoring, site visits, paid internships when they turn 16 years old, and when they graduate, they're first in line for jobs. Now, that's not a guarantee of a job, but it does mean that students will get an interview for appropriate jobs. We're now in 24 countries with this model. In the US, we're in 11 states and about 170 schools or so. And there's more than 600 partners around the world who are participating. So it's really becoming a high school reform movement, and we're hopeful to be able to bring the model to every state in the union and to more countries around the world. We do think it holds tremendous promise in both addressing skills gaps in the economy that businesses are facing, as well as addressing equity in education, because PTech schools are open enrollment, there's no test and grade requirements. They are geared toward young people who may be the first in their family to graduate with a college degree, and the degree is provided for free. So we're working with states in order to be able to get the funding for these schools to ensure that the education is provided for free, and also working to bring on new partners as well. So that's a huge focus for us, and we're thrilled that its replication has been so significant. At the same time, we know 170 schools, while tremendous, is still just a drop in the bucket. So what is it that we can do to reach greater numbers of young people? So we launched Open PTech, which is off our ptech.org website, and anybody can go there. It's geared towards 16 to 24, the 14 to 20 age. But anybody can log on and get access to learning. And learning is emerging technologies as well as professional skills about cybersecurity or blockchain or AI. But designing students have the opportunity when they log on to that site to earn badges. So they can earn badges that are the same badges that I am. So they have cachet in the marketplace. They show that you've earned something with rigor behind it. We also have materials for teachers as well. We've got a partnership with MindSpark where we've created webinars for teachers on AI. We gamify a lot of things to make it as well. And really working to try and get sight out of as many young people as we can around the world.
I smiled whenever you said AI, because that's one area that I mean, so many different areas, but for me, that's a push that I actually got from getting smart, because writing some different blogs and things, as the sun's coming in on my head, writing some different blogs, I was writing about just what I was doing in my classroom, and I wasn't challenging myself. And I found I need to challenge myself with what I'm doing so I can help my students with the challenges that I'm presenting for them or that they're coming upon for themselves. Because like struggling is uncomfortable, but in the real world, we all struggle at some point. And so what skills do we have as adults, as educators, we can help our students to build that will help them in the future? And so when I hear you talk about AI or the different jobs and the different opportunities that are existing now or that will exist through programs like this, and you mentioned PTech, and I wonder for anybody who's not familiar with the PTech model, if you could just speak to it, quickly, just to let anybody know.
Yeah. So yeah, on Open PTech, we do have those materials for teachers, but teachers can also earn the same business. They have understanding and grounding in the technology as well. And then PTech, that is our brick and mortar school model, where we're teamed with high schools, community colleges, and industry partners in order to be able to have students graduate with their diploma and their online to industry skills. And all funded by states, because this really is about high school reform. We're in 170 schools across the nation, and we started the model in Brooklyn, New York in 2011. So we're doing our 10th year. It's hard to believe, it seems like yesterday. We're seeing outstanding results. We've got about 4 times the national graduation for some of our cohorts. National community college graduation rate in this country is 13%, which is really, really low. And we're working to change that equation by connecting high school, community college, and industry, which are traditionally very siloed, and trying to we're holding hands with each student all the way toward degree attainment and to jobs. So it's been, a model that we're trying to make available as a pathway for more and more students around the world, and trying to get more industry partners involved too, so that it can really be a system change.
I almost didn't unmute there. And thank you for that. And I did notice that there was a question in the chat. I just have to scroll back up. And it was, what educational preparation would you recommend for students who want to advance in the CS field?
Yeah, so I I think it's really important for young people to have a grounding, a very strong foundation across all academic fields. Math, of course, is the language of computer science to a great degree. So it's really important for students to have a solid grounding in math and be very fluent in math. And I think that, going back to my earlier comments about really thinking about how do we make the field as diverse as possible, that we make sure that we're making math accessible to all young people, tying it as much as possible to real world problems. So, so that it has as much do you want me to start my video or is that oh, it's on mute? I apologize.
It's okay. You're good. I
Okay.
don't know what Zoom did there, but it turned me off
Okay.
and it turned you off.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you had done that, so excuse me. But really thinking about how do you tie learning to real world problems. Rachelle, you had talked about, oh, I'm a Spanish teacher, but you wanted to teach STEAM. How do you integrate it together? I think that's the way to capture students and motivate them and inspire them to pursue these kinds of studies. And then really make sure that these core subjects that are the beginning of computer science are accessible to everybody.
Yeah, and it's fun with the 8th graders that I have in my STEAM class. We start, the course itself is called like STEAM, What's Next in Emerging Technology. And so I do spend a lot of time with augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence, coding. But at the beginning of the year, I teach them, we talk about digital citizenship and fake news. There's a lot of different activities. And the other day, one of the students said, when do we get to do the cool stuff? And I said, well, we are actually doing the cool stuff right now, because if you had no idea, I said, when I was your age in 8th grade, which was a really long time ago, we didn't have any of this stuff. And so for me, looking at that, I think this is all pretty cool. Like, look what you can do. And we go through all the different technology tools. Like, I have a typewriter and a phone and everything. I said, and right now you're holding that in the palm of your hand. And people like you, students like you, are the ones that are going to be designing these technologies for the future. You're the ones that are going to be programming. You may be working and your coworker is a robot. You just don't know. And it's strange for some. They thought, oh, that would never happen. I said, believe me, when I was your age, I would have never thought, and I'll name a couple of different things. And I said, you just don't know from right now until 10, 20, 30 years from now, what you might be doing and what skills you might need. So while we will do the cool stuff in our class, I do want to also stay informed of what are the trends, what am I seeing, what am I learning about what skills the students need, what are the jobs that are going to be available, and especially now working remotely, and students need to be very adaptable and flexible in what they do and be able to think quickly and problem solve and experience that struggle, which is very frustrating and very uncomfortable, but that's how they develop a lot of those skills. So I think I just love hearing from your experience, like what you're seeing, what the program, the survey, everything that, like all of that information that's kind of coming from that, because it helps us as educators to think, okay, this, like, we don't have, there's not enough time a day for any of us at this point, but whenever you see and you get that information, and then you can see how you can apply it in your own classroom. And you don't have to be a STEM or STEAM teacher to teach about STEM or STEAM in your classroom, or to teach about coding, for example. And so I love hearing all of those different opportunities that are out there for students. And then as we wind down here, I did want to come back to one thing that you mentioned, actually a couple of times, talking about equity and how that is a priority with IBM and just in general in education. We've been talking about that so much. And I wonder if there was anything that you could share about, like, the work that IBM does in that area, potentially. I thought that I had read that the CEO had written a letter to Congress. And I don't know if that's anything that you would have a few minutes to just talk about with us. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a significant priority for the IBM company. I think before a company can do external work on equity, it first has to be a company that in and of itself believes in that. So there's a lot of internal work that we as a company do in order to be able to ensure that we have a company that uses inclusion and not assimilation. So we're focused on that as a company and really in our own unconscious bias. Certainly when it comes to the social and racial justice issues that we're all really addressing in a way to now thinking about Black Lives Matter. IBM has put out a pledge for all employees that all embrace. It's EMB parentheses race, and a real action-oriented and very deliberate request of all of us to how to think about how do we think more collaboratively with one another without bias, and call out when we see racism that surrounds us. So it begins, I think, with the company itself. Then through our corporate social responsibility efforts, it is PTech and thinking about open and are filling the pipeline with diverse talent, which is critical to the economic viability of all companies because you need differences in perspective in order to be able to spark innovation. So we do understand the importance of creating a diverse, inclusive workforce. And in that letter, our Arvin Krishna, our CEO, call for more PTech schools. So that's really important because we do need the funding. It has to be bigger than IBM. So it is a guiding principle for work. Equity, workforce inclusion is what guides all of our programs here at IBM.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And it is something just, I mean, so much has happened this year, and it's October 1st tomorrow, but just even in my own, I know I can't because I've really been kind of in the same space for so long, but I'm so thankful to have the technology and to have this opportunity to connect with educators and to connect with you and to learn. But the issue of equity itself is something that was an area that I was trying to learn more about. I mean, over the last couple of years, actually, when I got my master's degree, we had to take a few courses in it. And there were so many things that I was just completely unaware of. But now, because of those experiences and because of conversations and learning that I've done over the last couple of months, especially, I'm so much more mindful and aware of it. And I'm trying to bring in those experiences for my students too, to learn more about. And one of the things that I do with them, that's the last thing that I'll say, is other opportunities. Like as a Spanish teacher, what I found to be really helpful for connecting students with like the real world opportunities is we've done like project-based learning and Genius Hour, which are great because, I mean, they're uncomfortable for students when you tell them basically you can study and explore whatever you want, and then however you want to share it. They're like, but wait, I've been told how to do something for so long. And I said, well, at some point in your life, you're not going to have somebody there to specifically tell you how to do something, or you're going to be the one making all of the decisions. So I want you to learn Spanish, but I also want you to understand what's happening in the world beyond like our school, our community. And so even bringing in those opportunities for our students, wherever they get to connect with what's happening in the world, or to learn about technology, because we're having class through Zoom or whatever it is for right now. So I thank you for your responses for that.
Sure. Well, our students are so lucky to have a teacher like you. You know, we do have one course on Open PTech that you might be interested in. It's from ISTE, which has a lot of expertise in this area. And it focuses on, but it's not just about the foundational concepts around AI, but it also addresses ethics in AI. I think we're going to need more and more creating with these kinds of technologies, we're thinking about how do you implement them ethically as well. So something you might want to check out.
Yeah. Oh, so the ISTE course on artificial intelligence, is that the one? Yeah, that was the first I've taken. I'm involved with ISTE, but that was the first course I had taken with AI, and it was because I did that article for Getting Smart, where I had no idea how much AI I'm interacting with every day. And so I did take that course. I think it was probably 2 years ago now that I had started that, but that helped me to feel so much more confident in teaching in my STEAM course. I actually wrote a lesson plan to teach about AI in my Spanish course. So
I
I'm,
see.
I'm, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it, but that was a great, great course.
Well, we actually now have the student version of it on Open
Okay.
PTech, and
Okay.
it's gamified. It addresses the concepts, but also the ethics. So I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah, I have to check it out. Well, thank you so much for your time, for your information, for sharing. And thanks to everybody for joining in. I will put some links on the Learning Revolution on my Thriving EDU page where I post all of the events. So hopefully, if you do have questions left over, please let me know. And some of the people that joined in, I've known for a long time. They're very involved in STEM with a lot of things. They join in a lot. So thank you to everybody who joined in today. And I will see you next week. And I have to think about who my guests are. Every week I have people lined up. So always a different topic and different guests. So thank you again, Grace, for joining in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.